Hello everyone and welcome to Season 5, Episode 7 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches in NXT history with match number 44 on our list, which is the match between Johnny Gargano and Finn Balor from the NXT TakeOver Portland event held on February the 16th of 2020. TakeOver Portland was a very interesting show. Part of it, I think, is one of the best NXT takeovers ever. Two matches from it made my first season of this show the top matches of 2020. This match did not, but it's still fantastic in its own right. There was also a really good opener between Keith Lee and Donovan Dijak that's worth watching as well. The show had a hot angle with Charlotte Flair showing up to set up her WrestleMania match with Rhea Ripley. It was the final takeover before COVID hit, so watching it back now and seeing this hot big crowd, it was kind of funny to watch through COVID times and felt a little unnatural. The reason why I say it was an interesting show is the main event of this show, which was the NXT title match between the champion Adam Cole and the challenger Tommaso Ciampa, was the match where I personally felt like NXT started to go downhill for me. It featured a nonsensical turn with Johnny Gargano, turning on Tommaso Ciampa to go back yet again to their feud, which at this point I was so over. The match was, a lengthy match. It went 30 plus minutes. It had, big moves like Canadian destroyers on the floor and things like that being completely forgotten about so they could, move on to the next spot and the next piece of their story. And it was just a match that really didn't click for me. And it felt kind of like that overall jump to shark, moment for NXT, especially with that Gargano turn. That led into COVID, where, the sterile environment really didn't resonate too well with me with NXT. And eventually, a little over a year later, it would lead to NXT 1.0 ending and NXT 2.0 starting. And I kind of feel like it was that main event in Portland that kind of kicked it all off, at least, from my personal level. This match, though, even though it didn't make the top 50 matches of 2020, it is still really great, hence it making this list at number 44. So Finn Balor came back to NXT as a surprise on the episode that took place the same night as the AEW Dynamite premiere. So WWE loaded up NXT. They did the first half hour, uninterrupted by commercial on the USA Network. They had, a hot Adam Cole and Matt Riddle match for the title to kick the show off, and it led directly into this big return of Finn Balor that I don't think anybody really expected, because at this point, we weren't really used to wrestlers going back down to NXT. Once they had kind of had that WWE run, especially someone like Balor, who, was the first Universal Champion, it had been quite successful overall in the WWE. So he comes down. This led to him attacking Johnny Gargano and starting a feud where basically, Johnny Gargano, thought he was Johnny TakeOver, the best performer in NXT history. Finn Balor took umbrage with that, came back down to basically show that he was still the man and catapult his way back up to the NXT title once again. Kind of weird because, yes, Balor is the heel in this match. Yes, there's moments in this match where, he tries to play that heel, but overall, the crowd is really split. People didn't want to, boo Finn Balor. Overall, his heel run really didn't last very long. This match was actually supposed to take place at the War Games event at the end of 2019, but an injury to Gargano led to Matt Riddle sliding in and fighting Finn Balor kind of last minute instead, and this match being postponed to Portland. So this is a match where, I don't want to say it's like a stock Johnny Gargano performance because, that's unfair to take a match that's really good and claim it as that. But this match really is in his wheelhouse. And, we talked about it in the Andrade match the other day where he's so good at like this counter wrestling and, all of these intricate sequences and things like that. That's really what you get. And that's what this match delivers in spades. But it also has, this kind of like underlying aggression from Finn that's really good. It makes it feel a little bit different than just that typical, Johnny TakeOver sort of match. And case in point is very early on, they kind of do like a mat sequence and Finn Balor grabs a head scissors and he's like doing push-ups while he has it, right? Just showing that he feels that he's above Gargano and maybe above NXT as a whole. The juxtaposition there is Gargano escapes, blasts Balor with a drop kick, grabs a headlock, and there's no showboating or anything of that. Gargano is focused on the match, focused on the win, doesn't need to play those mind games. Gargano hits the schoolboy into the kick very, very early. They do a fun little fast-paced counter sequence where, Balor goes for his enziguri on the apron, and Gargano ducks it and jumps out to the apron himself and hits a spear on the ring apron. And then he makes a bit of a mistake. So, we talk about these head games and how, Gargano doesn't really feel at the start that he needs to play those with Balor, but when he gets to the floor, something switches a little bit. So in the lead up for this match, Finn Balor, blasted Johnny Gargano with the John Woo dropkick on the floor, sending him to the barricades, and hit the Bloody Sunday, right? That elevated kind of DDT, almost brainbuster maneuver on the floor to Gargano. So when they get to the floor, Gargano sees this perfect opportunity where, Finn's kind of groggy and getting up in front of the guardrails, and he decides that he's going to go for the John Woo into the rails himself, but it leaves him open, and Finn connects with a sling blade, and takes him back into the ring and starts to get the advantage. So Gargano, let kind of those mind games that Finn had played earlier get the best of him in that moment. We get kind of dueling limb work in this match for a little bit. Gargano goes after the arm of Finn, doesn't really go anywhere. Balor gets an opening and hits like a dragon screw through the ropes to Gargano's leg, starts to work over that. Again, doesn't really go too far as the finishes or anything like that's concerned. But, it does lead to, I guess, like a couple sort of close submissions that Balor would get with the leg work and Johnny would get, with the Gargano escape later on, which locks that arm. Really nice spot where Gargano goes back to the well once too often with this schoolboy into the kick, and Balor catches the leg and turns that into like a modified Indian deathlock, playing on that leg work, which was good. But where we really kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this match are those big counter sequences leading into the end. So Gargano goes for a tope to the floor. Balor kind of like hooks him in the Bloody Sunday, teases that Bloody Sunday on the floor. Gargano is able to escape out of that, hits a super kick, slams Balor into the steps, hits like his rolling somersault senton off the ring apron, and gets a near fall off the slingshot spear in the ring. They then go back to all of these sequences and use them again, which is really neat and really clever. The counters here are just amazing. Gargano goes for the long dart. Balor, kind of falls back, goes for the final cut. Gargano counters out of that, goes for La Mystica, which he would normally transition the Gargano escape, but Balor avoids that and hits the final cut. Gargano ends up going for one final beat, and Balor hangs onto him on that, tries to get the Bloody Sunday instead. Gargano slips out of the back of that, pulls him up and hits the lawn dart, which is awesome. We get a really cool sequence where they do like Gargano hits an enziguri, and Balor, as he's kind of selling that, hits back with the Pele kick, and then Gargano falls on top of him, after the Pele, for a 2 count. That was very Shawn Michaels inspired. We've seen him do that a lot with Sweet Chin Music, where he kind of ends up falling on the guy, or a guy falls on him, or whatever. So clearly, Shawn helped agent this match, and Gargano took that from him. We get another really nice spot, too. Both of these guys hit enziguris from the ring apron. Those are kind of like signatures that they do, so they hit them in stereo to each other. Gargano goes back for the slingshot spear, and Balor blocks that, kind of threads Gargano through the ropes, tries a coup de grace, misses that, and then Gargano ends up hitting the one final beat slingshot DDT for a great near fall. Out on the floor, Balor misses like a baseball slide and ends up getting a super kick instead. And back in the ring, we get a super kick from Gargano, and Balor fires back, fighting spirit with the sling blade. And they do it again, and Balor ends up hitting the John Woo. But then Gargano comes out with La Mystica into the Gargano escape, and Balor counters out of that and almost gets the Bloody Sunday again, and Gargano turns it back into the Gargano escape. It's all just really good, really dramatic, big move exchanging counter wrestling while the crowd is going nuts for it. So it all really works in the context of the match. We end up getting a spot on the floor where Balor rolls to the floor after getting the ropes while he's caught in the Gargano escape again, kind of going back to that arm work from earlier. And while he's out there, Gargano sees his opportunity again, and this time connects with the John Woo dropkick, sending Balor, falling back into the guardrail. He teases that he's going to hit the Bloody Sunday himself on the floor, but he gets distracted when he sees the announcer's table, thinks he can get an opening there. Balor manages to counter out, slam Gargano on the announcer's table, and the big, kind of climactic spot of the match is Finn Balor runs off of one announcer's table and hits the John Woo dropkick on Gargano, who's standing on the other announcer's table, which sends him flying off the table into the guardrails. It was really cool. Big crowd pop, looked awesome, yada yada. Back in the ring at this point, it's pretty much signed, sealed, delivered. Balor hits the coup de grace, and then finally, just to rub the salt in the wounds, hits the one move he had been trying all match and been unable to get, and he drops Gargano on his head with the Bloody Sunday, and it's enough for the 3 count to give Finn the big win. In his return to NXT, yes, he had had some matches up until this point, but this is, the one that was really supposed to kick off that run for him. And he delivered it and got the win. And he's so great in the post-match, too. He kind of, pins Gargano with, like, one knee over his body, and then he kind of, like, throttles him, and he's just talking mad trash to him, after the 3 count. And it was all, really good. And again, him trying to be that heel that ultimately the crowd just, they didn't want to boo him. And he would, evidently turn back face in his run as the NXT champion later in 2020. This match, you know what you're going to get from these two. It was kind of, an NXT fan's dream match. It really delivered for what it is. It's fast-paced, it's fun, the counter sequences are amazing. And again, it was in that pre-COVID time, so it's in that weird period where even now, that we have fans back, certain areas are reduced capacity and things like that, and the crowds still just aren't what they were before. So it's a really weird match to go back and watch in a vacuum now. Of course, though, because it's NXT, if you're in the States, you can watch it on Peacock. If not, depending on where you live, you might still have access to the WWE Network. This match is available on YouTube as well, though I will link to it on my Twitter account. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50. Subscribe to the channel here on YouTube so that you never miss a video. And please join me again tomorrow, as always, as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50.